it's one of those things, and when you're posturing, when you're negotiating, whether it's, between factions in a city or between countries, there's always a fine line of how conciliatory do we want to be and how much strength do we want to project.
Right.
And Marcus wants to err on the side of strength, right? He wants to put the Undercity in its place. However, in so doing, he massively escalates the crisis because he undermined the position of the one leader in Undercity who's calling for moderation. And
Right.
I thought that was just brilliant writing, and Grayson's furious with him, rightfully so.
Yeah, no, totally. I continue to be impressed by the writing in this show. Going back to your initial question, Justin, about what do we think of the opening of episode 2, where you show the opposite side of the heist, from a different point of view. That, like, I love that. I absolutely love that, because that is a who, I don't know who said it, but it's the whole, whatever. Someone said this, and they were smart.
And at least smart people will have said it now. So go ahead.
every villain is the hero of their own story, right? And so it doesn't look like Jace is a villain at this point, but I don't know, things are changing rapidly, so who knows. But I appreciated seeing that episode from his perspective, because of that principle of every villain is the hero. Every character, like, it's not just the villains, right? Every character is the hero of their own story. Every human being is the hero of their own story. And it makes it such a richer storytelling experience when you're able to understand and kind of view those perspectives, I think. And so I was really excited that they chose to take that tack with it, right off the bat at the beginning of episode 2, because and like you said, Joelle, I kind of thought it was a little bit unexpected. I mean, I wasn't, with the intricacy and the amount of, like, because they showed us, like, a lot of cool equations and a lot of, like, really ornate equipment, and of course the magic glowy rocks, right? Like, it surprised me that the guy whose apartment they ended up raiding was actually not a senior dude. Like, he's kind of and that was an interesting twist.
Yeah, I was expecting it was going to be, the patriarch of the family who,
head of the magic college or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I will say I really appreciated that, and furthermore, I think it adds so much depth to the story that you do get the Councilwoman Mel. The extraordinarily beautiful character.
I was gonna say, she is beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've had a kind of a thing for animation since Rogue from X-Men the animated series when I was like 11 years old. But she's noticeable, and she's a very cool character. But, like, I like that they show that even in Zon, there's still gradient. It's not all gods and nobles who live up in Zon. Like, Jace is a normal dude who's a refugee from we don't know exactly where yet, who barely survived by the skin of his teeth, and through talent managed to rise. So it creates complexity where, this is, I think it's pretty obvious by episode 2, this is a story where socioeconomic class warfare matters. That is a central theme running through the whole series. But
and Mel is super rich, but doesn't feel like she's rich enough, because there are other people in other cities who are a lot richer.
Yeah, and because it's not about, once you're that rich, it's not about the actual money, it's about status and power at that point. But the fact is, you have Jace living comfortably, luxuriously in every city, but he's not the elite, right? And I thought there are normal people who live in the nicer part of the city. It's not just the clueless 1% and the bottom rungs of society. The whole society exists along the spectrum. I think that's really important, because without that, I feel like the story would be a caricature of those kind of issues. It would just be preachy nonsense. But as it is, it's actually a nuanced perspective on it. So I really love Jace and Jace's background.
And I fully, and the other piece of it, and maybe you said this, but what I also love is that I'm not a big fan of just mustache twirling villains, right? Like, I like my villains to have some complexity. And the same is true of the overall, like, social strata, right? To show that Piltover is a society where a young man with nothing, less than nothing, can actually make his way up into, the upper echelon of said society through hard work and talent is really advanced. Because it's not just like, oh, all the rich people are terrible people, who live on their privilege and do nothing with it. And like you said, it makes it so much more nuanced of a story, and really gets a lot closer to examining some of those classism issues, I think, because it echoes reality.